Episode 53 of the Star Wars Timeline Show is back. We're back. Let's go.
We're back, baby. Let's go.
Back. Let's go. I am Tyler, joined by my fellow master of the sacred timeline, keeper of the spreadsheet of all things timeline, person who knows more about Star Wars lore than I do, has all of the characters down, has his Kanan Jarrus hoodie on. Luke.
The hoodie is on for tonight. Unfortunately, Kanan Jarrus is not in the High Republic, but we will be talking about him in a couple years, I'm sure.
In 2036, Kanan Jarrus is on the timeline.
Oh, good
man,
stuff.
it's good to be back. I mean, you decided to get married, and then it was like your marriage with the start of the school year and just finding some new ebbs and flows. It kind of left us in a bit of a downward time for the timeline show. I think it was a month ago was when we did episode 52, so it's been a full month since that dropped. So it's been a minute. It's been actually, because it's been 2 months. It was August 18th.
Yeah.
So it's been 51 days since the last timeline show episode, which is terrible. I never want to go 51 days without a timeline show again.
No, I don't either.
Okay.
This is too fun.
So we are going to be on High Republic Adventures. For those of you who remember where we're at on the timeline, High Republic Adventures, we're going to be on issues 11 through 13. So we're rounding out the omnibus for the High Republic Adventures phase, for phase 1. And we're just going to completely finish this off. Luke, what page are we on for those who are following along on their personal omnibus?
Well, in my digital version, it's page 280, if you want to flip to that real quick, guys.
Let's go ahead and flip over to page 280, part 11, The Great Jedi Rumble Race. Now, Luke, the Great Jedi Rumble Race here, and look at that. This just looks so good. And we got a lot of buckets of blood here, a lot of Lulazine, of course, because we're in the High Republic Adventures. Not a whole lot of, and for the issues we're talking about today, I'm going to say there is basically zero important things going on for every character for the Jedi side of things, other than Lula and Zine. There's a couple of nice moments that happen with others, but these 3 issues are 100% Lula, Zine. Like, this is the moment for those characters. The arcs are entirely for them, especially for Lula. And that is where our focus lies here. And I would say, because we know going forward, like, these are the titular characters of, this run, and it's going to become more and more that way. And because this all takes place mostly before Midnight Horizon, and we kind of get into a little bit of the crosshairs of that at the end, but because of the way Midnight Horizon's written, it just feels right to kind of do this after and then discuss some of the aftermath and talk about the book. And so I'm excited to dive into this. So we're on part 11, The Great Jedi Rumble Race. Luke, are you ready to dive into this one?
I'm ready to rumble on through it.
Ooh, we're rumbling. All right, so here we go. Now, I love the spreads of the High Republic Adventures a lot more than I like the Marvel ones. And this is partly why. To me, there's just a little bit more color, but also it just seems so much more in your face to find what the story's trying to say. And rather than, I feel like sometimes the Marvel ones, it's very much what I like, and it's very much, here is what's happening, and I'm just going to show you very basically like what's going on. And versus like the High Republic Adventures, they always take on, I'm just going to flip through this a couple of days, it always feels a little larger than life in these, you know what I mean? It just seems like they jump off the page. But here, it tells you right from the beginning what we're going to be experiencing for a while, and it's Lula Zine meditating, facing the other, and just having this moment of they are completely enveloped in each other's presence. Like, Lula, it has this crisis that she's going on of these feelings for Zine. She doesn't know how to deal with them, and the concept of what that means while being a Jedi or trying to be a Jedi. And they're so close now that Zine, they're meditating together. Zine just knows that there's something wrong and that it's radiating off her. And she asks her. Lula tells her nothing's wrong, but Zine knows that's a lie. Like they're so close now that they know when each other are lying. They can sense kind of the vibes back and forth. And then also, if these pictures look a little weird, it's because I took them while sitting on the couch watching football and tried to do the best I could, but I was not getting off my butt while watching football. Anyway, so Luke, where are you at in terms of Lula and Zine's relationship as we start off, the 11th, issue here?
If I could, real quick, you had mentioned the artwork, and
Yep.
I just wanted to say that I don't want to dig on either of these runs for the Marvel versus Dark Horse here.
Mhm.
But I do feel like the Marvel is made where the story is written and then it's given to the artist and they say like, "Hey, could you draw these scenes for this story?"
Yeah.
And I get the feel that these Dark Horse comics, which I think is maybe why we like them so much and you like them even more than Marvel, it's because it feels like the artist is part of the storytelling. Like
Mhm.
DJO is talking with the artist, and there's things that Daniel Jose Older has written in his script that he submitted that the words that he wrote never even come into anyone's speech bubble or any
Mhm.
kind of narrator text. It's like the
Mhm.
artist has taken it and it's just a picture now. And
Mhm.
it's so artistically done in a way that I don't see from Marvel in phase
Mhm.
one. I don't think we see
Right.
that type of storytelling in Marvel. So these are just kind of
I kind of
pure
compare it to
works of art.
is almost like a novelization of a movie. You know what I mean? Like how a
Mm,
novelization, you have the movie, we know what happens, and you have like the script of the movie, but the novelization is going to take things and add on to them. And that's kind of what I want in comics, right? Like I have
yeah.
the script, but there's a reason why I don't just read the comic and only want the text and like I want the visuals to enhance everything around and tell their own story. Where if I didn't have any words at all here, I would still be able to understand the gravity of what's happening or the emotions of everyone and kind of see the story unfold. And the text almost serve outside of that a little bit, almost secondary sometimes. Like I want those pictures to really tell the story too. And I think they do a little bit more here. So I would agree with you on that. In terms of Lula and Zine,
Yes.
obviously we're big fans.
Yes.
And this is a, monumental step for them, these 3 issues. And I love how they're kind of struggling with this whole, how do we balance our feelings for each other? Does this person know how I feel? They kind of both feel that way, where Zine is always like, does she know how I feel? Does she feel the same way? And the whole time Lula is very much like, does she know how I feel? Does she feel the same way?
And so a lot of this arc is them wondering, them thinking things along these lines. And it's very different. They're both feeling the same way, like we've just discussed, but like they have such different implications for each character. Whereas Lula is kind of banned from having romantic feelings or attachments,
Mhm.
as because she's a part of the Jedi, she's in the Jedi Order.
Right.
That is a tenet of theirs. Whereas Zine is ultra respectful. She knows that she shouldn't be a stumbling block to her sister in the Force, her person that she does, have romantic feelings for, and so she tries to push those down because she doesn't want to be a burden to anyone else, especially Lula. Um,
Especially.
and so it is just it's kind of hard to read. You love it because you kind of figure they're going to get
Mhm.
together, but it's hard to see them push away things that they both want.
Mhm.
They both want
It's the
this.
classic teenage, romance drama vibes going on with the 2 of them, but there's that added element of the principles of the Jedi Order and like what that entails, which changes everything in the context of everything. But it's interesting how you have the Great Jedi Rumble race going on here. And here's like an image at the beginning. It's basically this giant obstacle course type race set up around Starlight Beacon for all of the Jedi. That buckets of blood is put on. And he basically said, there are no rules. We will take off. But this is all happening. And it's almost like a, oh, we're celebrating, the Nile are on the retreat and we've defeated them, and we're just a few more battles left to fight and we're going to be great, and this is this moment where we've lost so much, we've hurt so much, but things are now going to be better, go back to normal, let's have a fun time. And this is all juxtaposed with this Nile stuff going on in Corellia, where it's basically the Nile saying, "Oh, this is far from over." And we, as the reader, because we've read Midnight Horizon now, we've gone back and done this, and we know that things are about to get swampy here. Things are about to get hairy, and it's about to get dirty. It's about to get messy. And these characters, it's almost very hard to read, because I'm sitting here going, "Oh, they're all so happy right now. Like they're trying to figure things out, the romance vibes, and oh my goodness, a lot of crap's about to happen. It's about to, it's about to hit the fan." And it makes me, but it's a great way to tell the story here in this comic, to have, I think, this like very lighthearted time for the Jedi, which we haven't seen throughout pretty much the entire run since the beginning. And now, as juxtaposed with the Nile threat is not over, they are coming for the Jedi and they have no idea.
Yeah, that's the worst part, is they are not even in war mode. They're not really expecting what's on the other side of this like rumble race. It's kind of them conjuring up good feelings. The past year or two have been very hard. They've lost many
Yeah.
people. They've lost many footholds they had on the galaxy that they would use for good, but they've been lost. And so the rumble race is awesome. It's needed. These kids need to be kids. But it hurts to know that the undercurrent, like you see it. We saw Respryler
Right.
there, this person, and they're planning this attack, this huge kind of conflict altering plan where they're going to try to get the Nile a foothold in the inner
Right.
rim, in a very different part of the galaxy than they exist, because the Nile exists mainly and super mainly in the outer rim,
On
the
the outer
outskirts.
rim.
And so for
Yeah.
them to have a foothold in the inner rim would be devastating to the Republic, to the Jedi, to people all over. So
Sending a big time message at
yeah,
that point.
yeah.
Let me ask you a
Sabata
question before
Krill.
we move on to that part of the story. Do you know every single character on the spread of all these Jedi's, or all these Jedi's, just Jedi? Can you name
The
every single one of them? Do you know them all?
so no, there's one, and I'm gonna say 2, 3 that I don't know if they've ever been named, and if they,
Okay.
because like I feel like if they had been, I would know them.
So if you're just listening to the audio, I just put up the image of like the start line of the Great Jedi Rumble race with all the Jedi just mashed together in these different ways. And then you have Zine, of course, who is almost, a youngling, an apprentice by proxy at this point, and by name. Like they've almost like honorary like member right
Yeah.
now. And anyway, so there's just a bunch of them mashed together. And I was just like, Luke, can you name this? Now, a funny thing, I wanted to read a line because Ram does have a couple of great lines in this.
Oh, he does.
And one of them was, do you know what Ram asked to ride when he is trying to be in the Great Rumble race?
He asks to ride a droid.
Can I ride on a droid with augmented starfighter parts attached to him? And of
There are
course,
no
Ram's
rules.
trying to do that. And Buckets is like, there are no rules. And so he's like, yes. And then you got this guy like, well, you may find that difficult since I removed all of his fuel and replaced it with bantha milk. So there is sabotage going on amongst the Jedi younglings. Anyway, I thought that was funny. And so you have, like you mentioned, the Respryler here, which we believe to be the Nomar Trimont, which is the trader on Corellia that's basically selling out his people to the Nihil. So we believe that this is the trader, like this is him. And he is basically having a meeting with Crix, who is the former friend of Zine, and member of what is left of the path of the open hand, essentially from phase 2. And Crix is now a full-fledged member of the Nile. He's been struggling as of late. And you have Sabata Krill, one of his own, who he believes would never betray him. And you have Nomar Trimant here, and he is basically telling Sabata Krill, and without mincing words, he's giving this little analogy about this species he's watching, and basically saying, hey, Crix needs to die. And Sabata said, oh, You are so right. I got some plans for that.
Um, it kind of I like that it speaks to the bad guys. There's always a flaw in the way that they think. They're the bad guys for
Right.
the reason. And so oftentimes as I've been watching more stories here in this past couple of months or reading more things, I feel like the theme I keep picking up on in all these different stories is like the bad guys cannibalize on themselves. If they run out of
Mhm.
people to oppress outside of their group, it just
Yep.
starts turning inward. And so these
Especially the
three
Nile.
people, yeah, these three people are all Nile that they're talking here, Chalmont, Crix, Sabat, Krill, but like they're trying to remove one of them. Isn't that like, I don't know. If I'm trying to join the Nile and I'm trying to give them advice, I'd say, that's stupid. Why would you reduce your numbers? Like knowingly and purposefully. So um yeah, they think that Crix is not smart enough to have the amount of power that he does.
Mm,
Uh too arrogant, too many of these things that are honestly things that have been baked into him from Marky and Rowe, who has
mhm.
taken him under his tutelage. And so what they're saying they don't like in him are kind of things about Marky and themselves. Like that's just a very
Exactly.
disorganized group. So
100%.
yeah,
100%. They're the Nile are such an interesting beast because there's such a great fear of Marky and Rowe at the top, and the Nile are kind of in semi-retreat, some people believe at this point, but they're always looking to gain the upper hand on each other and looking to turn on each other and cannibalize themselves from within. Do you have uh your digital High Republic issue handy? Because I have a question for you.
I do.
Okay, could you flip to so I'm gonna read. There's this line from Ram where he says, "Hi, Master Stellan. Hi, Master Emmerich. Hi, pretty lady I've never met before." And he's just during the race. Who is that pretty lady down there? Like, why am I blanking
Oh,
on who he's talking to? Because I see Master Emmerich, I see Stellan. Like, what Jedi is he talking to right there? I could not quite place it. Or is this some diplomat or someone that I should be aware of, but I haven't? And because they're running the race at this point, it's going back and forth between Corellia and this meeting on Corellia versus the meeting, or so the race with the Jedi as they're maneuvering themselves around.
oh,
And
okay.
yes, do you
So
who
he
is that?
says, "Hi, Stellan. Hi, Master Emmerich. Hi, Pretty Lee. I've never met before." That's Cyan Holt. She is someone who you will. Well, I guess you first met her here, but you're supposed to first meet her in Trail of Shadows, which is what we will get
Okay,
to.
okay,
She is the female lead of that, and Emmerich Kaftor is the male lead of that. It's very good. I really like that one. So
okay.
you're gonna
I'm
like her a
excited.
lot.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to it because I haven't read everything. That's one of the few things that I haven't gotten to yet. But anyway, so I just wanted that answered before we moved on. But of course, this was so good. And buckets of
Oh,
blood at the very end, everyone's like, "Hey, we're all getting near the finish line. Maybe we should, all cross together in unity because that's what we are. We're the Jedi." And Buckets said, "Watch this," and unleashes a giant force push. And he literally monologues it himself. He goes, "Buckets of blood with the massive, unstoppable force enhanced shove," and shoves every single youngling back. And then wins himself and says, "Buckets of Blood is the winner of the Great Jedi Rumble Race." And he's like championing himself. And this was a whole elaborate thing for himself to win, where Ram is like, but you were cheering for us the whole time. And he's like, "Of course, for second place." And it reminded me of The Office when Dwight creates the like hay maze and like hay place and
oh
everything
my
just to
gosh.
crown himself hay king at the very end when
Yes.
he's like, did I create this thing to basically fulfill my wish from when I was a child? Like, absolutely I did. And Buckets was like, "Did I do the Great Jedi Rumble Race here just so I could crown myself winner? Of course I did." It's like
That's a
almost the
good.
Jedi can be petty too.
Yeah, I do. It's not to get too deep with it, but it's kind of a
Mhm.
nice sense of like tough love. Like, hey, you all like get to have the day off, kind of, and we get to do this little race to have fun. But at the very end of it all, I'm gonna push you all down because
Right.
tomorrow is gonna push you down. Like, it's not gonna be every day is a fun day. So like,
Right.
let's get back into it.
But so what did you think now as it goes back to this like final comment like about Crix and how they're talking about he's like a useless leader of the Nile, and then we kind of close off issue 11 with this image of Corellia City, which I
Whew.
thought was really cool, like spread here. We got like the entire city here. It's like bright, you kind of see all of the magnificence of the construction of Corellia, like the bright yellows and everything that you imagine for a giant city. But you also almost it shows you without much color, outside of the brightness here of the, like that bright yellow, a little hint of red. But it also, in a way, you can see some of the degradation of certain parts or some of the like pollution of the city even, and it almost feels like we see what the Nile are about to do in a sense.
So in this image, I believe this big main, like pretty yellow strip down the middle, that is, and I should say, Corellia is known for being a shipbuilding yard. So I believe we're looking at ships being built here. And I think this is the type of ship, like the exact model that like Princess Leia is on. It's like the Tantive 4. That's like Rogue One into A New Hope. That's like the type of ship she's on. And if
Right.
you look kind of like top of the page a little to the right, I think they're building a Corellian YT freighter, that's like the type of model that the Millennium Falcon is. It looks like it's
Okay,
got a
hold
little
up.
cockpit, like a little circle
I see that. Yeah.
with the protruding centerpiece. So
Okay.
it's interesting. I think that's a callback.
That's cool because you
I
got like the
could be,
shipyards here.
yeah,
I didn't look closely enough to realize how many different ships are embedded in there, which is really impressive.
yeah. The
It's
artists
interesting.
for High Republic Adventures are insane.
No,
Um,
that's awesome. I love this one. So moving on to part 12 here, we have part 12, which is Let's Go. And this one doesn't, pull any punches here. We're gonna have ourselves a bit of a battle. And this is where the Nihil have essentially sold out, Crix at this point. But I liked how the beginning starts off with a flashback for Lula. And Lula is basically reflecting on when Cantum Sai told them something they never understood, which is about how to let go of things. And she feels like that is what she said has to do with Zine. She has to learn how to let go of her relationship, her feelings with Zine. And this is about how she's learning that maybe she doesn't need to do that, right? But I thought it was interesting how we just recently covered the part where Cantum in Midnight Horizon is having the flashbacks of when he left the order or when they left the order, and they kind of discovered their true meaning of being a Jedi was by letting go, and then they found Lula and became Lula's master, and here we are getting Lula's slight perspective of the same exact story. So I thought that was like a nice way to begin the penultimate issue here of the Phase 1 High Republic Adventures.
I was going to bring that up if you didn't. I thought that was awesome, especially for people who have read Daniel Jose Older's novel. He's written both of these things, and so yeah, I loved seeing it depicted. And it also sets us up with like
Mm-hmm.
this has been Lula's life up to this point. She's been
Right.
her whole thing is like she's wanted to be the best Jedi ever for as long as she
Uh-huh.
can remember, and
Mm-hmm.
so now throughout this issue, throughout this arc, she's going to realize that like Zine might be more important than that. The thing that she's
Mm-hmm.
actually held for her whole life. Zine is very
Right.
new,
Mm-hmm.
considering her whole life span, but like
Right.
Zine has quickly become more important to her than becoming the greatest Jedi ever, which is earth shattering, but she's coming to peace with that.
She is, or she's trying to come to peace with that at
Trying,
least. And
trying
she
to.
thinks she has. There's a great part in this where she says, "My name is Lula Talasola, and I have a secret. I've gotten so good at pretending everything is all right, but it's not." And the way that they write these High Republic adventures, and especially a lot of the young adult stuff or middle grade stuff with the High Republic, is they make these characters so ultra relatable on a baseline level. In the adult novels and in some of the adult stuff that we have, like with the Marvel comic run, but especially like the adult novels, they are clearly relatable characters that we love, but a little more complex in the issues that we're talking about because it's a higher level of reading, it's a higher level of audience, or at least an older audience typically. Versus these are very much baseline level, where this is like something I would talk about with my middle school kids about pretending when you're pretending everything is okay, but it's not. And how do you cope with that? How do you handle that? And even us as adults going back and reading this, how often do we in our own lives pretend everything is okay when it's not, just for the sake of other people around us and not wanting to appear to be too vulnerable, not wanting to appear to be weak in some way, because in society we've almost said that showing that you're not okay is this form of weakness. And especially I think that's much more of like even an American thing, like make sure you don't show any weakness, right? And so I would love the fact that this issue tackles that directly, and it's a way for us to reflect, even as adults here, as we're reading this, how when you keep pushing like this and pretending everything's okay when it's not, eventually there's a breaking point that you're going to hit where you're going to have to like realize that and take a step back. And this moment that she's going to later on have with Zine, where she finally admits to everyone in these arcs that, you know what, I'm not okay. I have things I need to figure out. But then she finds the person that is going to help her through that the most in that scene.
Yes, that's beautiful. Also, good commentary on just life on Earth, really.
Mhm.
So, thank you for that. Showing weakness is hard, but it's better than bottling it up, and that's
Mhm.
what Lula and Zine are going through. Um, I think it's this issue where it comes to a head where Lula is asked to lead a task force to go get
Mhm.
Crix, and
Mhm.
when Zine kind of has the choice of where to go, she chooses, "No, I'll go to Corellia. I'm not going to go with Lula. Like, I would just distract her. She needs
Right.
to go become a Jedi. Like, this is our split off point. Like, she's
Mhm.
going to go from this day on and live her life becoming a Jedi Knight, getting knighted. She's going to do that here
Mhm.
soon. I need to, stay out of her way and not trip her up. This has been her whole life. She knows that. And
Mhm.
so, gosh,
Well, you
that's
you
it's
mentioned that
hard.
because these issues completely like put them parallel, because this is their story at this point. Because the
Yeah.
very next spread talks about how it says, "My name is Zee Marala, and I have a secret. I should be happy for Lula. This is an incredible moment for her. It means she'll probably be knighted soon, and that's all she's ever wanted, to spend her life being the greatest Jedi ever. But all I could think about is how that life won't have any room for me in it. That's not fair, though. Best thing I can do is get as far away from her as possible. I'm just a distraction. I know it. And even as I say it, I regret it. I don't want to be away from her." And how interesting is it? Lula's whole thing is she's having these problems because of these feelings she has for Zine. She's trying to wrestle with that, and she feels like she's not ready for what's coming with the Jedi. She's not sure what to do, and Zine feels, because they haven't really talked and explicitly said what those feelings are, Zine's feeling that. And how often do we feel the same thing that Zine is feeling? So often we're either on the Lula side of things, right? But sometimes we're on that Zine side where we're seeing someone that we love, get some great promotion or get some further stage in life. But that's also hard for us to reconcile. I think about how, in the last year here in Orlando, I have had, two of my best friends here, like two people that I have spent a lot of time with over the last 6 years, and two people that, I consider to be, essentially family, like found family here in Orlando, right?
Oh, yeah.
That have, like had kids or moved off, away. Like both of them have moved fairly far away because of great opportunities that they have gotten elsewhere, or they're starting this like new chapter of their lives together in this other place with their significant others or and their kids, right? And that's awesome. You get so excited, like you're very excited for them, but at the same time you're just sitting there going, man, this sucks. Like this sucks, because these are like people I really care about that I'm used to seeing, every month or every few weeks, and now it's like, well, I might see them once a year, or every, maybe twice a year, every other year, and your time is so limited, right? And it's so difficult to get that time together in. And like this is obviously like a different thing zine, of course. Like this is like that teenage side of the teenage crush, and your teenage crush is going to the college that they've always wanted to get into, and they're not able to follow them in that. Like they don't got the test scores, or they aren't don't have the wealth or the money resources to pay for that tuition, but they wish them all the best, but like, man, I just kind of wish they would go to the local college here that's not maybe as flashy or as rewarding as some people might say, but I feel like we could have a good time if we were closer together. You know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of where we're at here, but it's still a totally relatable situation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's choosing, to put it lightly, I would sometimes go over to someone's house, someone in my church, and they would have this sign that said, "Are you caring more about people work or paperwork?" And
Mm.
it's kind of like, I feel like that is kind of here at play. Like, it's the
Mhm.
people work that matters. Like, the people
Right.
in your life are going to matter a lot more than the paperwork that you do at the end, when it comes down to the bottom line. So
Mhm.
you just got to find that balance. And
Mhm.
so that's what we're watching, is these two people trying to figure out,
Mhm.
how do I work toward making the galaxy a better place? Because I'm
Right.
also like trying to help the Jedi Order here, but it is important work. It's good work. But there's also someone in my life who deserves more
And
of my
there's other
time.
there's other things out there. She's so
Hmm.
young, and what's really bringing this to a head is the fact that Lula has been given the task of, they've located Crix, and they've been looking for him for a while, and she's been given leadership of the task force that's going to bring him in, which is essentially Cantum Sai and the other Jedi saying, "Hey, Lula, this is like the last stage of your trials. You do this, you're able to lead this, like you're ready to be knighted. We just want to see you take on this leadership role in a very important task." And that's kind of what is going on, because Zine volunteers to go to Corellia because she feels like she needs to get away from Lula and push away. And again, relatable. How often in our own lives are we forced in a situation where there's loss, or we're worried about the fear, like we have that fear of loss, right? And so instead of maybe talking to that person about it, or embracing the last few moments you have with them, or it really enveloping yourself in that relationship, what you do is you push away, and you're like you push that thing that you're so worried about losing to the side, and you almost say, "I'm going to break it off now," because breaking off now is going to be easier than if it happens in the future. And what really happens here is you're closing yourself off from like more memories to be made, more the relationship to grow deeper, to have resolution. And Zine even says, like, I instantly regretted it. And I feel like there's every single person has a moment in their life that they can look back on and say that they regretted not diving deeper, or shooting their shot, or trying to have a closing moment with someone, or mending a fence. And I want to say, like, that's why this is such a great thing, I think, for adults to read sometimes, because we can talk to like the middle grade readers that are reading this, or the younger audience that might be reading more of a High Republic adventures, and we have the life experience. Some people have the life experience to talk about those things with them while they're learning and reading about this in real time.
Absolutely. The lessons here are written at the level for kids, but like, they speak to everybody. Everybody's had this or will have it coming up soon. Um, and they get to the point where they have to go their separate ways. They get in their ships, and
Mm-hmm.
their phrase is, "I need you."
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
I Yep, it's ended. Like, before we get back, let's get back to the story too. Is here's like the task force. You have Farzala, you have Court, you have Zine and Lula. Once she hears, Zine, once she learns that Lula's leading this force, she wants to go to Corellia. But once they learn about Crix and everything, she decides that she's going to change course, and she's going to go with Lula. It was more of like, yeah, I think I got that a little bit backwards before. It was they learned about Corellia, and Zine volunteers to go to Corellia to get away from Lula. But then once they find out about Crix, that's when Zine's like, oh, I need to go resolve this from my past. Like, I need to be a part of this. And so they're going there. And I wish I had grabbed the image of the battle, because like the battle sequence is so good. Like it's just pure chaos on the page, right? So if you're
Yeah.
reading, if you haven't read this and you want to, like it is
It's
pure
just
chaos on the page. There is just, falling ships everywhere, blaster fire. It gives you everything like that you would want from a chaotic Star Wars battle. And ultimately they go in and they are able to capture Crix, but not before he learns of Sabata Krill's betrayal.
yes, that is very apparent when Crix realizes he's losing the battle. He's been taken off guard. He was planning his assault on Corellia, and he was about to give the green light. Okay, let's head to the ships. Let's go do this thing. Right when he gets the notification, Republic ships have entered the sector, and it's a lot
He's
of
like,
them.
huh? Wait, what?
And so he tries to retreat on his planet Dollar Hide. Thought that was, is that like a reference to something that I'm not getting?
Maybe, I
Dollar
don't know.
Hide. I
It
thought
might
that was
it might
interesting
be.
enough that I'm like, does that come from something else? And
Everything in Star Wars is a reference to something at some point, right? Like at
it
some point.
kind of feels like it at some points. You dig deep enough, you do find that's true.
Wait, that Ahsoka poster behind your head, is that the one we got at MegaCon last year at Ashley's panel?
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh, let's
Yes,
go.
it is.
Oh my god.
And I leaned the
Yeah.
wrong way, but the Thrawn poster that I got as well is now hanging up as well.
Dude, I got major beef to pick with like no one in particular, but just life because I have 100%. I cannot find my. You know how I moved 3 months
Yes,
after MegaCon, right? I cannot find my Battlestar Galactica print that I bought at MegaCon. Like I cannot find it anywhere.
you had just
It
bought it.
is. I just bought it and I cannot find it anywhere. I feel like I gave it to someone to hold on to.
Oh
Like,
man.
I thought I gave it to a friend to hold on. He's like, no, I don't have it. And I'm like, where is it? I've looked through this closet 1,000 times. Like I cannot find it. And I'm just sitting here going, I just want my Battlestar Galactica print with the Cylon Raiders everywhere and everything. It's just so good. And I cannot find it. And I don't
Goodness.
know, it just makes me mad. But real quick though, before we get back to it, the guest reveals for MegaCon Orlando are happening starting this month. So we should find
Ooh.
some of the celebrity guests so we can keep our eyes on that. And I believe applications will open soon for panel stuff again and different things. So I'm excited for that. We'll to get our applications in for everything. But hopefully there's a
Yes.
lot of some good Star Wars people. Anyway, back to this. So Crix, learns about his betrayal, all of that. There was a couple things I want to point out, and it was the Rhydonium that was used as the possible betrayal that was going to blow everything up. Basically, he could blow everything up and take the Jedi out with him, or he could allow himself to be kept prisoner. And every time I see Rhydonium now, like what every Star Wars fan thinks of now when they see Rhydonium, right?
We're the Rido kid.
We're the Rhino kid. You're like, there's no Leuven. You're here right now, and you're ready to fight.
Ready to fight.
Like that's what I think of right now the entire time. Like that's all I think of. Like right now, I'm just ready for Saw Gerrera to pop up in the High Republic and be like, I'm ready to fight.
The world between worlds opens up, and he's right there.
Saw Gerrera. You know who would have when we get to phase 3 and the thing that happens at the big like to end phase 1 and phase 3, if Saw Gerrera were on a certain side of that, he would have gone off the rail. Like, who would have he would have eaten so hard at a Planet Rebellion during that time. Oh my gosh. It would
That
have
would have been him on
Saw Gerrera
Ariadu.
versus the Nile would have actually been the Battle of Iriadu with Saw Gerrera. Oh, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna have to put him in there. That could be a mission of the month. We haven't done a mission of the month in a year,
Oh,
but maybe we
shoot.
bring it back and we just have like we
My
have to
bad.
put you have to put Galactic Empire characters into like a High Republic situation and or something like that. Like you're drafting Galactic
draft it
Civil
up.
War era characters for like a High Republic situation. That would be fun.
Let's draft it up. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
We're doing that. Anyway, so there is a final thing here that Lula says as they capture Crix, and I thought it was interesting. It was love really is the hardest lesson for the Jedi, not just the Jedi. I feel like that's true for everyone. Love is the hardest lesson for the Jedi. If we hold too tight, everything falls apart. But we can't wall off our hearts from the world or pretend we don't have feelings either. There's only one way forward, really. And then you have Lula going, sometimes you have to go too far in one direction or another to realize where your home is. And sometimes that's the only way to find. And then they merge the colors of the text because Lula
Yeah.
is blue, Xena is green. And they're like clasping hands and it says to find balance. And it tells us right there that they are each other's balance, Luke. They are each other's balance. And we're going to talk about that next. But oh my gosh, Anakin Skywalker, can you learn a lesson here about we can't hold on to everything too tight? Anakin, please, no.
It's a dang shame knowing what he goes through and actually seeing multiple different couples in the High Republic be able to essentially get it right with Avar and Elzar. That's certainly a unique case they end up being, but even this couple, um, Zine and Lula, they get it. They get the love. They get the no attachment. Um, they get it. Anakin was not raised in a way that he could get it.
Mhm.
I don't think
So I
so.
have an alternative world between worlds ending for the High Republic involving Anakin Skywalker in some way. I want to share with you, like off this pod, that I thought of. That this is like, this is like the absolutely awful like fan fiction stuff that I think of in the course of my day. So I'll share that with you afterwards. But here we go. We have one last issue, and leave it up to us to dive so deep into this. We're 40 minutes in on three High Republic issues, but who
Three
gives crap?
issues.
It's been 51 days, damn it. Let's go. All right, here we go. For Light and Life. What else would issue 13 be called but For Light and Life, with all of the lightsabers in the air? And this one, this one's not like too crazy long, but it's very much Starlight Beacon is in peril. We are now beginning the descent into darkness, and the Nihil are making their presence absolutely known. And they have essentially let Lula know, hey, we're ready to knight you. And she tells them she's not ready yet, and she wants to take time to figure things out. But Court and Farzala, they get knighted at the end of this, which is really exciting. So, like, we see some people get knighted, and really, though, we finally get the Lula Zine conversation that's been building for all 13, issues of this run, to where they finally have that conversation, and it really takes Zine getting closure on part of her relationship with Crix and kind of tricking him into figuring out, oh my gosh, what's going on in Corellia? We got to figure this out, which is when she leaves to go join them on Midnight Horizon, which is where these things start intersecting, and has to leave Lula, which is, they don't know what's going on with the other. And the way that this ends, it's like, oh my gosh, all these cliffhangers. But of course, you've read the High Republic. Lula's going to be okay, at least for the next issue. So fingers crossed, right, listeners? Fingers crossed, right? But they finally have that conversation. And then, there's the nameless effect that's taking place on Starlight Beacon. But what were your overall, expectations going into 13? Were those met? And let's talk, and then we'll talk about that Lula Zine conversation, because that's really the big one here.
Yeah. My expectations were met. I was very pleased with the High Republic Adventures. I enjoy a story format where you get a little bit more after the conflict ends. And so I do think that the conflict, the battle,
Mm-hmm.
the flashy stuff has happened and is over in issue 12. And issue 13 is the fallout, and you get to deal with it then. You get the relationship closures, you get the conversations that you would want to go write a fanfic about if they didn't happen and the story ended with issue 12. You'd have a lot of people saying like, man, I wish we could have got this conversation. Like, there's other things in
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars that I do feel that way about, but
Yeah.
this gave us Crix and Zine being able to talk, and Zine being able to shut that door. Like,
Yep.
you betrayed me. Like, we,
Betrayed and limited.
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
And it's highlighted because Crix has it in this mind that he is the one that knows what's best for everyone, right? He's that kind of person. Like, I know what's best for you, Zine. And, Zine's whole life is mired in being, suppressed, like having to suppress her force abilities because she wouldn't be accepted in her society if she displayed them. And the moment she did, Crix turned her back on her or turned his back on her. And she felt devastated at the time. And it says here, like, I'm so, so glad I found people who love me for who I am and not for some version of myself that had to be lesser to make them comfortable. Like spitting bars. Zine is just spitting bars at him here, right? Because how often in life, I feel like I keep saying that phrase today, like how often in life, but really it's these three arcs really hit home in some very vulnerable ways that I think people have a hard time reconciling with, but also expressing themselves. And like how clear is it here for people sometimes that they lessen themselves to make people more uncomfortable. Like I might limit an excitement that I have about something because maybe some people think that's weird. Or growing up, you might not talk about some of the things you're interested in because of how your peers might respond. Like how many times did we do that with like Star Wars stuff growing up? Will you indulge me on a conversation?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so I had this conversation with a student today, one of my favorite students, right? And like, amazing student, but she is very competitive, like extremely
To a
competitive.
fault?
I mean, has a hard time when others are not being competitive.
Oh, okay.
And you know what I mean? And like just really gets frustrated, like really frustrated and wants to, she's like, come on. Like, she's like, I'm so competitive, coach. And like very, like gets very animated, very loud. And 100% reminded me of myself as a kid, like, and not even now to some degree, right? Like I'm still super competitive and want to win, but I remember so many times like growing up and getting so frustrated when people wouldn't take a competition seriously or a game seriously, and almost having, and it felt weird at times because it felt like I was having to limit myself even around people because I wasn't understood at all. And obviously, as you grow up, you mature and you realize, okay, not everything has to be taken so seriously, right? But it is like growing up, trying to fit in. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do this. But there were times as I got older and started making different friends, realizing, oh, like, these are some people that are like ultra competitors that I can go and we can just compete. And sometimes it's like when we would play, like we're playing basketball sometimes and it's for fun, but we're talking trash. We're doing like we're talking smack, like we're going hard, saying the worst things to each other while we're playing. And then because we all are like wired that way, but then as soon as it's over, it's like, all right, let's go get pizza, right? Or let's go hang out and watch the game. And there's to me is I was reading this now, and it reminds me of this conversation where I kind of was telling her not to suppress part of herself, right? But to channel it in a way that's going to be the best. And that's kind of like how Zine does it with the Jedi, where she's been suppressing all of this, but now she's here and she had to learn here. She could have easily used the Force in a negative way to overpower Crix and use it negatively. Instead, she used that Force energy for positive because she's found her place with the Jedi and what's going to really bring the best out of her. Almost like I tell my students, like, hey, find a way to use your competitive nature, but in a positive way with your team. Like help that be something that maybe helps them try to be more competitive. But, we'll see if that lesson, is learned right away, of course. But, you try to have those conversations. And I don't know, it reminded me so much too of myself as a kid. Like I remember every single game, like we had to win. Like if we're not playing and oh my gosh, Luke, I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much, but
No, it's okay. Because
this
I'm
was a line.
relating really hard because I was a
This
lot like this too.
this was a line, this was a bar that the kid dropped that felt like literally I know I've said this to people growing up multiple times. And even now I have to check myself sometimes, like when I'm getting so competitive over certain things. And I said, hey, remember, we're like doing this to have fun. Like some people just play things to have fun. And she goes, but what's the point? Like, she goes, winning is fun. Like she said, competing, but even lose. She said, competing is fun. She's like, I'm a competitor, coach. If I'm not competing, like, what's the point? And I'm like, and it's one of those things where I was like, I'm with you. Like, I'm with
I'm
you. Like,
with you.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. Like, what's the point if we're not going as hard as we can? And all that to say, like, but you have to find ways to channel everything positively given the situation that you're in. And that's without limiting yourself. And I think that Zine has had to learn that as well with the Jedi in a way where she was suppressed the whole time. And now she's found people like Lula that understand her and she can channel her force energy in a way that's really great, but in the right context without having to be like negatively using the force.
Absolutely. She And if we remember back to issue 1, she's been suppressed, that she's part of this cult that you're not allowed to use the force. That's it's been a while since we've talked about that. So, yes, she's been suppressed, and now to have the freedom that this inalienable part of you that you can't get rid of
Right.
is now accepted instead of hated. Why would you not run to that and stay in that for as long as you can? Gosh, dude, I relate so hard to that story because I was like that as a kid. Like, I don't want to lose, but like, if I went as hard as I could and everybody else on my team did too, then like, that's just how the chips fall. Like, that's fine. But if I can see one of my teammates isn't going as hard as I am, well, now I'm more mad at them than I am at the other team. Like, oh, it's such a conundrum.
They're not even like going as hard. It's more of just like, oh, it's funny. Like we're just playing around. Like we're just having fun. And oh my gosh, that was always the hardest for me in sports is when you play with a group of people and you realize that, oh, we're just playing for vibes. Like this is purely for vibes, not to win. And has always been the hardest thing for me in group settings almost. Like even in grad school, man, like we'll get together, we're doing like a work assignment or something, and like we'll play like a review game in grad school, or we'll have like chart paper and like around the room. And it's like we got these scenarios for like administrative leadership, and we have to go through these scenarios and come up with our answers. And I'm like, I want to kick every single person's ass. Like I want to have the best response. I want my response to be more creative than the other person. Like we're gonna have more pizzazz, we're gonna have more energy, we're gonna tackle this in a unique way. Like we are gonna be the best one here. And it's one of those things where like, all right, we're going to collaborate together to come up with a big group, answer. And sometimes I'm like, that's great. I love collaboration. I'm not someone's going to come, but I'm like, let me cook too. Like I want to cook like sometimes and like deliver the goods. You know what I'm saying? So I totally
Yes.
relate. It was one of those moments today where I felt like I was literally talking to a younger version of me, which probably made it to where I was the right person to be in that scenario. But it's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's round it out here with Lula and Zine. After she has the thing with Crix, Zine is able to embrace Lula. They have this epic hug, which we read about in Midnight Horizon. We read about this moment, but it's nice to see, it put into paper here, like on a visual for us. And here we go. We have the line. All of a sudden, it's now or never. Zine, just wait. Be careful. I know I'm not supposed to, but I need you. Zine, without looking at her, goes, I need you too. And then says, Champ is in my room. Take care of him for me while I'm gone. Of course. But, and then she takes off and she regrets it. We talked about this in Midnight Horizon review, that she regrets leaving without having a bigger conversation because of what happens on Starlight Beacon. She's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't tell her the most of how I feel. But what Zine doesn't realize too is that for the moment, that's enough for Lula, because Lula was like, she feels this way too. Like I didn't think she would, but she does.
Yeah, they get to put their foreheads together. They don't fully, say I love you or start some kind of official relationship, but it is enough to hold them both over. And well, not more importantly, but like Lula's the one with rules attached to her lifestyle. And so for her to be going through all this, it's enough to hold her through until the next time she gets to see Zine, which I think is important. I've always been more of a rule follower type of fellow. And
yes.
So I relate to Lula quite a bit. I've always wanted to have that drive, be the best at whatever thing I'm in. So yeah, I feel like I get her. And to have
Absolutely.
that little spark, that little crumb, honestly, it can be enough to get you through until the next thing, because your motivation is driving you to be the best, and you just need that outside source just enough I need to know you're with me on this, and I can get through. Like
You're either
she
with
has it,
me or you're
or
my
you're my
enemy.
enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes, Lula.
Only a Path of the Hand member deals in absolutes.
Only one of the members of the Nile's secret order. Oh my gosh, so good. Well, Luke, we did it. We rounded it out. And I will say there is an epilogue for these issues, and the epilogue is a lot of the madness that takes place on Starlight Beacon. So we've talked about the fall of
The
Starlight Beacon
coda.
enough at this point. Just
Yes.
know that the madness is happening and our
Yes.
heroes are in danger. So
I will
there's
say
that.
one little nugget to leave us with is Court. He's not one of the main characters. He's one of our main characters of this series, but Lula and Zine had the spotlight, rightfully so. But Court gets another Aloxian under his teaching. He gets
Yes, that's a
Zint.
good point.
She is a tiny little version of Court, and she still has her skull mask on. And so there's going to be a burgeoning master and apprentice relationship there, which is going to be very cool. But it just starts here. There's a little Court all over again. So it's awesome.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I'm glad we left this. Where are we going next in the timeline, Luke?
Well,
He said, "Oh boy."
that's not loading. We are finishing out the rest of the Phase 1 comics. So it's going to be, I'm not sure specifically, but next is going to be Edge of Balance Volume 2 and
Okay, so we have the manga
or
next.
Trail
Okay.
of Shadows. So yes, it's going to be the next manga in Phase 1, the last manga of Phase 1, or Trail of Shadows, which is also written by Daniel Jose Older. He has lended himself heavily to the comics of the High Republic.
Oh, so you're not sure which one's next on the timeline where you're figuring that, or or like which one are we doing next for the next show? Are we figuring that out?
I have it down. Let me pull that
Okay.
spreadsheet up right now.
Like, no worries. I know that it gets a little tricky. And guys, obviously, if we are glaringly wrong on something on the timeline, let us know. Sometimes we start ahead on certain because of just the flow of the story a little bit. So like, while yes, we know that a lot of the events we just talked about today are a little bit before where Midnight Horizon takes place. To us, it just made more sense to tell the story of Midnight Horizon and then fill in the comic gaps here too. Anyway,
yeah. So I have down that we're going to do the manga next, and then I felt it was going to be prudent to finish out, like, officially the last thing of Phase 1 that was released as part of Phase 1 is Trail of Shadows, because I do think that's kind of meant to like shove you out the door of Phase 1 and like you're ready for where this goes. So
awesome. Exciting. Yeah. We got this. All right, everyone. For Light in Life, everyone, remember this is the High Republic show. This is the Timeline show featuring the High Republic right now. For Light in Life, remember out there, we are all the Republic. See you next time.